I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
And this is a special broadcast.
We've got some new stuff coming down the pike. We get to review some new stuff that is coming down the pike.
It's currently
3:30
a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we are about to listen to a song that dropped about 2 or 3 hours ago by the band Linkin Park, featuring Chester Bennington. Rest in peace to the big homie Chester. It's going to be crazy to hear his voice again. Dear listener, you're used to, we've done over 3,000 videos on this channel. We're very proud to say that for the vast majority of them, we listen to them straight through. We don't interrupt. We don't put our commentary in the middle of the song. The reason that most other reactors do that, and shout out to all the reactors in the space, is because if you don't stop it periodically, the record label will hit you with a copyright claim, and then you won't be able to, all the money from the commercials or whatever goes to the record label and Google, and you're left out. So in order to survive, people chop the song up. We don't do that. We don't need to do that because we have Patreon, we have PayPal, all those other things. If you want to be in an alliance, it's easy as $1 an hour. Okay, so
no, not $1 an hour.
$1
a month.
$1 a month. Sorry. Okay, so we will be commenting periodically. We'll violate our rule for this specific situation. I just figured there's a lot of Linkin Park fans, a lot of hurting Linkin Park fans, and it'd be cool to have Chester, kind of, But I'll tell you guys, if he sucks, I'll just say he sucks. I don't care. That's just how we roll.
Guarantee a positive review. Yeah.
Right before we do that, though, speaking of positive reviews, we have a baby formula company. If you or anyone is having issue with the quality of formula, your baby can't digest formula very well, that has to do with the fact the vast majority of U.S. formula makers haven't had a significant update since 1980, according to the Washington Post. Our supplier is actually from the European Union, specifically Germany. I don't have to tell you, it's much, much higher quality. And if your kid can't keep regular formula down, you should check it out. It's Fuji. Go to Amazon.com and type in Fuji.
It's also really helpful for constipation and stuff. So any issues like that
and
really
colic.
helps.
It's a miracle formula,
Yep.
but nobody wants to hear about that. Here we go. Chester Bennington, Linkin Park Lost. Let's do it.
Visuals are beautiful.
Visuals are crazy. I know that a lot of you OG Linkin Park fans, like, that sound is immediately recognizable. That's what, like, Linkin Park, like, that's how they did it.
Okay.
A little bit of atmosphere at the beginning, single note, little key things on the piano for a count.
Go in hard.
And then you go into that driving.
Yeah.
So many. I mean, they had that down to a formula, and it's actually pretty odd to me that more other bands haven't stolen that song design, because I mean, it just worked. I mean, they never missed with that design, never. So shout out to Linkin Park for that signature Linkin Park. I know if you guys are Linkin Park fans right now, you guys are tearing up because after they left, I mean, after Chester left, I mean, there really hasn't been a band like them.
Yeah,
there really has. And you know what's crazy, because Linkin Park used to be criticized, especially by people like me, like, oh, they're dime a dozen, they're part of the new metal thing, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But the fact that the band is still around, especially in the wake of such a horror, I mean, how many other bands could have survived something like that? So shout out to them. But yeah, just typical Linkin Park. Well done.
Just a scar somewhere down inside of me, something I cannot repair, even though it will always be. I pretend it isn't there.
Damn.
Wow.
Let me take a.
So how did they get this sound? Is this something that they had pre-recorded and it never got out?
Yeah,
and they like,
you know how like you work on
and
songs and they're like, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
You know, so you can imagine a band like this. They have such a high catalog. Of good songs. So I could see how a song like this could end up on the cutting board. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like their throwaway songs are the hit songs for
Yeah.
90% of other bands. So
Jeez,
it makes sense.
Yep.
Just a scar somewhere down inside of me, something I cannot repair, even though it will always be. I pretend it isn't there. Okay, I'll put the lyrics over here. We can follow on. Let's keep going.
I'm trapped in yesterday, where the pain is all I know, and I'll never break away, 'cause when I'm alone.
Okay. Those are pretty tough lyrics, considering the way that he went out.
Yeah.
You know, being trapped in yesterday. You know, Chester did talk about being sexually abused as a kid, and he essentially said you know, that nobody gets over it. Nobody ever really gets over it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know the inner workings of the man's life, but some of that must have factored. Like, I don't know how that shit germinates in the mind of a person who is told they're supposed to be happy. You know what I'm saying? So like, oh, you're a rock star, you're on top of the world. I mean, they were literally on top of the world. Like,
yeah.
Out of all the bands in that era that came out in the new metal era, I mean, Korn survived, obviously. They're still doing great, still packing shows, obviously. Slipknot did, but Linkin Park would have been 5 times, 10 times bigger crowd-wise, like, than any of the shows you've went to. Like,
really?
Today. Yeah. Linkin Park would headline and sell out stadiums today.
Okay.
If that's what I'm like, that's how, like, the 4 or 5 bands that survived the new metal era, they're all legendary bands, but as far as popularity goes, they were at the top. So how do you deal with, like, crippling depression and all that jazz when you're such an important high person who's has no right to be miserable?
Yeah.
You know, it's difficult.
Yeah, it
makes
makes you wonder too, like, can anybody get therapy if they're in any of those spaces, or is that like frowned upon?
I think they can, you know. I just think that,
well, you know what I mean by can. I mean, like, obviously nobody's gonna, like, threaten somebody's life to make them not. I just mean, like, is the environment, like...
Well, I was talking about, like, a questionnaire that I was filling out. I was like, okay, this questionnaire right here, like, one of these questions is designed to detect this kind of pathology. Mm-hmm. So, but I answered it honestly. But that's because we have a channel with 180,000. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I answered on. So it's one of those things where it's like, because there's that gap, like something that would be true of like 99.99% of other people. There's that gap. There is that sense, like, in which you can't be helped and related to, because a lot of people, when they're with their therapist, they develop this sort of, I don't know, platonic sort of relationship where the therapist is kind of like, I've been there, or everybody's been there, this is how they've gotten out. But what do you do when everybody you're an extremely unique situation? I don't know how that therapist helps you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
It's difficult.
I'm lost in these memories, living behind my own illusion. Lost all my dignity, living inside my own confusion.
Wow.
Damn.
He's got such an amazing voice.
Wow. He does, because he's screaming, but he's still hitting notes. That's another thing. I thought there were going to be a dime a dozen, like, bunch of Chester Benningtons. Like, here's the template, sing like that.
Yeah.
Nobody's been able to do it. Dude was just different. Shout out to Chester. Okay, Chester, let's keep going. I'm listening.
But I'm tired. I will always be afraid of the damage I've received. Broken promises they made, and how blindly I believed. I will never break away, 'cause when I'm alone.
You can't help but think, I'll always be afraid of the damage I received.
Yep.
Broken promises they made, how blindly I believed.
Wow.
So, like I said, I don't know who it was that, violated him at a younger age, because, I didn't follow the band as much. So I don't know who, but I do know that he had said that had happened. But on top of that, the record industry and fame, it's very, very difficult for certain people to navigate through that environment and then work through their issues.
Oh yeah, I bet.
That's extremely difficult. And he talks about hiding behind an illusion. And it's like, they got their deal. They were in their young 20s. Maybe even 19, 20, 21-ish. Like, it's like, when did you have the time to actually process anything? Your the prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed until 25, 26 years old. It's like it's like I keep saying about these rappers, like, Vaughn, all these young rappers, they're doing all this shit before their prefrontal cortex is fully developed, so they're making irrational decisions. So you put a bunch of abuse, and that's interesting when you think about like the 27 Club or whatever.
Yep.
It's
I
like
was literally just thinking about that.
Your prefrontal cortex kind of is fully developed at 26, but all the shit that they were doing, when they had access to endless amount of drugs, their bodies couldn't handle it anymore. You see what I'm saying?
Man.
So you got to think about Chester. Like, this happens to him, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, and then a decade or two later, hey, there's millions of people and everybody's clawing at you, and hey, and it's like, oh, well, I'm a rock star, I'm happy, I'm cool, I'm this, I'm that, and that can be the illusion. Like, wow, I did it. A lot of the shit that he was singing about and the pain that was inside of him, he let it out as a rock star, but then that became a part of him being a rock star instead of actually being able to express himself.
Right.
And that's a hard thing to grapple with, because it's something so, like, for me, like, it's the things that I've written, obviously not comparing to Linkin Park, but the things that I've written are so sacred to me that for some corporate guy to say, hey, change this, change that, this is proven to generate more buys, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then the compromise is that all of them make, that's why, like, you had Maynard with that song Hooker with a Penis, and it was and they were talking about,
they all had a lot of them had a fight back song.
You're a sellout, you're a sellout, you're a sellout. And he's like, obviously I'm a sellout, I'm selling a product. Yes. What
did you think?
So but I think that's a healthy way of dealing with it. But I just think Chester was just more childlike in the way that he approached things than Maynard is. Damn.
Lost in these memories, living behind my own illusion. Lost all my dignity, living inside my own confusion. I try.
Wow. The visuals on this are crazy.
Yeah, visuals are insane.
He's like spinning around inside of this black hole that is the iris of his own eye.
Yeah, man.
Crazy.
You can get really trapped in your own head, though.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you can.
So, like, he's. You keep hearing these people talk about being trapped by the stardom. Or we were listening to, I forgot what the documentary was about Cobain, but like, he had this giant house.
Yeah.
And then he would go to like these seedy hotels in Seattle, or he'd sleep in his closet because the shit was just too much for him. Like, he wasn't disposed to be that kind of a person.
Yeah. He had his TV like set on a box instead of